first I'm gonna have everybody shift upward.
All right.
Want us to move back to the front row?
Yeah,
Okay.
just, you don't have to all be in the front row, but just don't be so afraid.
All right, well, I'll stay right here. Right now. You can't see how many more cookies I take. Oops, sorry.
Charlotte, am I okay talking from here? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna get started. A few people might trickle in, but at least this is being recorded so people can watch it back. If you don't know me, my name is Amanda Wolf. I'm the Housing and Land Use Planner. We're also joined tonight by our Town Planner, Elijah Romulus, and our Director of Community and Economic Development, Nora Loughnane. So the first thing I'm gonna have to do is take out your phones, and you can scan the QR code. It's also on your tables if you're near a paper, if that's too far to scan. And you're gonna fill out a prompt of what comes to mind when you think of housing.
Can you believe I don't have my phone?
If you don't have your phone, that's okay. You can also shout them out and I can type them in.
Would you like help scanning?
What?
Would you like help scanning?
Yes.
So if you use your camera.
Yes, do, please. So I can't, can you hear her? I can't hear her.
Do you need me to be louder?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah? Okay.
I can't hear you.
Okay. How about if I talk at this level, can you hear me? No?
Switch seats, maybe?
No, if you talk at that level, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I will do that. And if I get quiet, just tell me.
Thank you.
All right. So we have family, safety, short supply, shelter, and a house.
Can I add some because I don't have my phone?
Yes.
I wrote comfort and basic necessity.
All right. I'm not going to type them in, but I'll
That's
write it
fine.
down.
I just want to know I'm participating, Amanda.
All right. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation. All right, that was just to warm us up. All right, so tonight I'm gonna give a brief presentation. The goal is to not hear me talk, it's for all of you to talk with each other. So I'm gonna briefly present, I'm gonna explain what a housing production plan is, and then we'll go into breakout sessions, and then lastly, we'll do closing thoughts. And at any time, especially given the small number of people in the room, if you have questions or anything, just raise your hand. All right, so just important thing to keep in mind is that any housing matters are subject to fair housing, so the discussion is always inclusive of every protected class. I'm not going to read through all of them, but just want to keep that in mind with the conversation tonight. So what is a housing production plan? It is a plan that guides future development of housing, especially affordable housing. It's made up of 3 components, starting with a comprehensive needs assessment, then a community engagement component, and then lastly, goals and implementation. In our case, we'll be using it to develop our affordable housing policy guide for the town, as was directed in the comprehensive plan for the entire town. And then the plan sets goals to ensure we're meeting community needs, continuing to exceed our 10% threshold on our subsidized housing inventory, and also promoting housing stability for current and future residents. These plans are updated every 5 years by the Housing Partnership / Fair Housing Committee, which is, they're joining you tonight. and then it gets approved by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So just a brief recap of the 2020 Housing Production Plan, which was the first housing plan that the town did. 10 new DDS units or supportive housing were built, and then also 30 plus subsidized housing units. And there were obviously many more market rate units, but that's just capturing what's on our subsidized housing inventory. Do I have that number right, Nora?
I think so.
Okay, you looked like you were looking at it. We also introduced by right housing through the mixed-use multifamily residential overlay district adopted in 2022 and then expanded in 2024. And then we began fair housing training. We started it with the Housing Partnership, and then we'll be doing the Planning Board next in January. And then we also created online resources for various housing matters so that people have more access to the information they need for any type of housing situation. The full plan is on the town website if you're curious. So this process all started in July, where the Housing Partnership met and we kicked off the process. Flash forward to September, we opened a survey that remained open till November 27th. In that time, we collected 213 responses. Also in September, we held a forum on housing for seniors and persons with disabilities that was held at the Council on Aging and specifically spoke to those needs, although that can be a topic for tonight as well. In October, we did a review of the 2020 plan, which I just gave some highlights from. And then a few weeks ago, we released the comprehensive needs assessment draft that is now available on the town website for public comment. After tonight, we will be releasing the community engagement section as a draft, and the Housing Partnership will be discussing it at their meeting. And then in February, the last part, the goals and implementation, will be released. And then in the spring, there'll be more to come, including presentation of the full plan, planning board approval, and select board approval. So I'm just gonna hit some highlights from the comprehensive needs assessment. Most of the data is from the 2022 American Community Survey. That's the most recent data set available from the Census Bureau right now, so that's what we're using unless there was more recent data available. Starting with the population, we're about at 16,000 people as of 2022. The UMass Donahue Institute does make predictions for all Massachusetts municipalities, and they are saying 25,000 by 2050. However, it's important to recognize that that number is based solely on historical migration patterns, mortality, and birth rates. So it doesn't factor in the many things that can influence population. So it's just used as a tool to predict, but it's not something that's a guarantee by any means. Looking at racial and ethnic identity, Westwood is predominantly white. Any races that are not included up here just meant they didn't capture anyone in the ACS data that year. It doesn't mean no one identifies as those. It just means the number was small enough that there wasn't a percentage. And then similarly, only 3.7% identify as Hispanic or Latino. When you look at the age distribution of individuals, it matches what was observed in the 2020 Housing Production Plan, where Westwood does have an aging population. About a quarter of the population is age 60 or older, and about half of households have someone age 60 or older. Conversely, the smallest group by far is young professionals, 25 to 39, and that can be a reflection of affordability, but doesn't necessarily paint the whole picture. So we definitely have an increasing older population and not the same number of new people coming in. All right. Next, we'll look at income. The median income for the town is nearly $193,000. If you look, you'll see that the low and moderate income earners are declining or staying rather steady. But then you look at the share of people earning $200,000 or more, or I shouldn't say people, households earning $200,000 or more, and that continues to grow. So Westwood residents are becoming more affluent, but we're not necessarily seeing any growth in the other income brackets. Conversely, 2022 marked the highest jump in poverty in at least 10 years in Westwood. We don't know, this is 2022, so it remains to be seen what that looks like in the following years, and it's also important to consider that the pandemic was happening at that time. But just an interesting note that that was a significant change. People are paying a significant amount of their household income on housing. Being cost burdens means you pay 30% or more of your income on housing. So even people without a mortgage are still exceeding that, whether it's taxes or utilities or other things. And you'll see that the renters are disproportionately cost burdened, and that's because when you have a mortgage, you have a fixed mortgage, your payment stays the same every month, but renters, oftentimes your rent is going up year to year as the market changes. Looking at the home price to income ratio, it's right now an average of 6.3. Meaning people are paying 6.3 times their household income on housing or purchasing a home that will be that amount. The last comparable time was in 2006 when it was 6.6. So we are seeing a more expensive housing market and high interest rates. Looking at housing production, given that Westwood started out as a farm community and it's a New England historical town, pre-1940 is where most of the housing was built, which is to be expected. There was a increase in the mid-20th century. This is right around the time they did a lot of federal programs promoting the production of housing, so that's likely why it peaked. This is also when they built a significant number of the senior housing developments in town, so Westwood Glen, Highland Glen Apartments, and some other properties. And then since then, it's kind of gone up and down. It's too hard to say, or it's too early to say what that trend looks like moving forward. Looking at the densities we have, Westwood is predominantly single-family homes, followed by projects with 20-plus units. So think like Gables at University Station, the Highland Glen Apartments, those places. And then we don't have as many mid-density options, so things like townhouses or smaller apartment buildings. So that's an area where potentially the town could pursue more housing diversity. Out of the roughly 5,600 housing units in town, most of them are owner-occupied, whereas only 13.7% are rented. Out of the housing stock, there is more age-restricted housing than there is subsidized housing. And again, a lot of that dates back to developments built in the 70s. And then there's a small percentage of supportive housing. So that includes memory care, senior assisted living for people with cognitive disabilities, the umbrella term. So looking at what the effects of high costs have, this is speaking broadly and not necessarily reflective of Westwood, but just how this can impact communities. It causes increased housing instability, which leads to things like displacement, so people having to leave the community because they no longer can afford it. Need me louder? More cost burden households, so people paying more of their income than they should on housing, increasing poverty rates, increasing homelessness rates, overcrowding because people will live together to save money, and then reliance on subsidies. So this is where we are seeing a shift just in terms of the type of need people are reaching out for. There are 3 primary housing subsidies. So there's affordable housing, where the housing itself is subsidized. And the wait list right now for any affordable housing in Westwood is 1 to 5 years. Then people can also pursue, that's good. Then people can also pursue a housing voucher, which subsidizes the cost of your rent. For an MRVP voucher, which is the state program, the wait is 5 to 10 years. And for a Section 8 voucher, which is the federal version of the same thing, it's 17 to 20 years. So obviously that doesn't work when someone's in an immediate need. And so this is especially where we see displacement because people just have to go where they can find it. And it's not just happening in Westwood, it's Massachusetts as a whole, it's nationwide. But the other challenge that arises is the current affordable housing, with a few exceptions, is restricted to 80% of the area median income, meaning they take the area median income of the entire metro region, which we're in the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy metro area, and that encompasses basically all of eastern Massachusetts and goes up into New Hampshire. So it's the region broadly, and the federal government calculates what the area median income for each metro region is. At 80%, this is what the current income limits are for that program. So as a household of one, if you make less than $91,000, which many people do, you will qualify for affordable housing. While that has a benefit in that it's great because more people that may need it have access to it, the problem is it also is used to calculate the rent limits. And so that's why we have rent limits of over $2,400 a month for affordable housing. And this is the challenge we're seeing where affordable housing is becoming unaffordable for people. Fortunately, not every property management charges the maximum amount, but many do. And so that's the challenge people are facing. All right, so now I'm gonna have you guys all work together. The timing is, oh, perfect. So you're gonna join into groups, maybe like 2 or 3 groups, whatever you're comfortable with. And there are papers in front of you. There's like 2 large sheets and there should be a pen. And you're gonna go through the activities listed out as a group. And if you have any questions or anything, just feel free to, you can flag me down, Nora, Elijah, anyone. All right. Any questions with that?
Not at all.
No? Okay.
Can
we join your group?
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Want to turn around and
Yeah.
Be the official script.
All right.
I don't have a pen.
Sharing our names and what
All
motivates
right.
us.
Well, I'm Mike McCusker. I am a member
I'm
of
Joe
the,
Courtney Murray, and I'm a member
Housing
of the
Commission.
partnership, Fair Housing Partnership.
I'm Grace.
hi Grace, nice to meet you.
I'm Sean Weller. Nice to meet you, Bill. Awesome.
Okay.
And then what motivated us to attend today? Full disclosure, I am on the planning board, so that's part of it, but I also think,
I got guilt tripped.
You got guilt trips?
yeah, but,
Anything we can do to boost our numbers?
yeah, good. I am in that age range that is, I think, sort of a gap for the town, and it's expensive to live here at our age. It's very expensive. It's hard, love to buy a home at some point, but it's hard to find something that works. And
Well, based on that thought,
Elijah Romulus, and I'm the town planner.
more
you're the town.
to
Planner.
facilitate someone your age moving into this town.
High density housing.
That's
Next question.
I would, yeah,
So we know.
All right, what do you like about housing in Westwood currently?
I think I'll start with
Let's
sort
skip.
of where we
Yeah, well,
were
good.
when we moved into town.
Our
We
position
rent,
is pretty much-
we rent an accessory, essentially an accessory
What do you
unit
like?
on kind of an older historic home, and it's very cool. It feels residential. It's really nice, and that's what attracted us to the town. That we could have a space like that while still renting. We looked at places like Gables, and we looked at some of the bigger Jefferson and Dedham Station, and some of the ones up there, and we were lucky to find something here that was actually more affordable rent-wise, but that wasn't always the case. Our other kind of options were kind of moving more into Boston and Hyde Park and things like that. So, for me, what was attractive was I found a place that was affordable, but also had some space, some natural space around, felt quieter and residential.
Oh.
We got lucky, but that doesn't really exist everywhere, and those two things feel like they can be in tension a lot of times. So, in terms of, yeah,
Well, another thing that would help people our age move into town, I think, is small to medium-sized houses. Westwood
Yeah.
has a lot of enormous houses, which are completely not feasible for young
We
couples.
didn't always.
And the
Yeah.
town chose
You know, we
not
It seems
had
like
a serious
the houses
problem.
themselves are growing.
Well, that's just it.
chopped it up
We,
into
you
all
know,
these little lots.
we had
And
a
I think we had
little
enough of that.
peculiarity
in the
in some of the
town.
neighborhoods, which were
And,
smaller lots.
And I
smaller
lived in
homes,
one of those
that
developments,
once the
with all the
prices
chopped
really
up
started
lots.
taking off,
So,
advantage
it's okay.
of these,
So what do you like
the
about the town?
zoning, and
What do I
started
like
putting
about
in
it?
large houses on
What do you
very
like
small
about it?
lots.
Yeah.
Which did a real number on our starter housing,
I like.
Yeah.
you know.
the
Now,
Sure.
I understand, a starter housing, a starter house in Westwood's $800.
I like
Right.
the neighborhoods
But
and all of that
They
sort
were
of
small enough homes where you could buy younger,
schools and yada,
than,
yada.
you know,
I
a
didn't
secondary
like that.
home or a
But,
lifetime home.
I wish we were
And
more
you could
integrated.
start
Now,
your
my
family,
neighborhood
and hopefully a
has
few
become
years down the road, when you have
with
a little bit more money, you
Chinese
moved up in the
population.
job and everything,
So
now you
that's
could move on to
different.
a larger house,
I
and
wish
someone
we
else could
had
come
more
into
people
town
of
and join.
color.
Uh,
We have
we lost
virtually none.
a good amount of those houses
For
in
what I can
between
see.
the time that we noticed it
We had a lot
and
of Asian
took
people
action.
Yeah.
in the way you define
The
Indian
problem with
people,
Westwood is there's not too much
Asian,
place
we
left
had
to
that.
build,
Yeah.
you know?
And
Kinda out of
Chinese.
land. That is, in my opinion, our
Hard
biggest
to-
obstacle,
What
is that we just don't have a lot of land.
Right.
New number,
A few years ago, though, we had
but
the Westwood Lodge property
difficulties of
come up, and we got
new
to
people
add
coming in
housing.
and
Yeah.
people staying.
And, you know, there's still some places that, fingers crossed, hopefully,
Unless you
that we
get
can
priced
maybe
out. and I
develop
can-
down
I
the
know
road.
With my neighborhood, I live in the Mays
The
neighborhood.
idea of
And
purchasing
I know
land, or
people
even a
that
contractor coming in
been
and
in
purchasing
Westwood
land,
a very long time.
few and
They're
far
probably gonna
between.
move very soon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not
You
fixed
know,
income.
I would, I mean, I'm with you, I
You know,
want an entire
limiting
neighborhood of
their,
starter
you know,
homes.
ability to bear increases.
But
in
that, again,
electricity,
the
food,
high
all
density
the other kinds
housing,
of things.
that doesn't solve that problem,
That's
No, it
something,
doesn't.
you know,
You know,
and
a little
it's,
beyond
again,
some of the things we
with
do.
the prices that we'd be starting at,
We are.
I can foresee
focused
people
on address-
living in there for a long, long,
My
long
son
time,
is newly married.
which
a
is
year
not
ago.
ideal,
Right.
you know?
But
What about
being
the
able-
mixed use?
No relation, but being able to move
you know,
into
High
the town
Street,
is
some of those
Yep.
lots that have a lot of parking and
Right,
not
right
much
in
else
here,
going on.
I mean,
Yeah.
I am all for it, I can't wait to redevelop up here, it has been touched since the sixties.
Okay.
I'd love to redevelop. For whatever reason, the owner of these blocks
No problem there.
hasn't decided,
And I just
to
sit
do
and
so.
watch
um,
my housing.
but it's, you know, it's a balancing act, you know?
Okay.
Nobody wants these with the parking lots in front and everything set far up.
Right.
They wanna bring it all up to the street, create a
Right.
main street.
I would
you know,
agree that, I live
parking
in
in the
Westwood as
rear.
well, and I would agree that
And
the,
I'm all for that mixed use, but again, it's only when it gets
mixed bag, but
presented
certainly
to
our
us.
property values
Take advantage.
appreciated.
And for whatever
Incredibly.
reason,
And
over here,
that's
hasn't
Yeah.
gotten to that
for
moment.
those of us who own our
It will,
homes.
it will
It
eventually.
would be really horrible for those of us trying to move, you know, people trying to move into Westwood, you know, my
I'm
son.
still in my
you know,
ideas.
is like to live in Westwood.
That's why you're the chair.
Yes, that's why I'm the chair.
I do like,
What do you think?
I like Westwood
Well,
zoning, I
I
think,
come at it
you know,
from a
Westwood's
very
done a
different
really good job
avenue.
with zoning and,
17, 18
um,
years.
you know,
And I have a special needs daughter. That's plain
I think that's a benefit to us in Westwood.
next step for her. Whether it's
I'm gonna get to my, it could be improved later, but I'm sticking
but
with
we're
it
actually
like now,
looking
so.
at
I'm really
potentially
glad that there's that big
property, maybe
development
affordable housing.
down
Everett
by-
Street.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everett Street.
Mhm.
But recently I
roommate,
saw
possibly?
on Facebook
There's
somebody
a lot of
was
options, I would
fussing
think.
about it and all the additional kids. It'll be in the schools and, well, now it's.
That
all
type of
right now,
housing available
Which it
and
should be the Hamlet.
sort of a model
really
that is
instead of
going
That Paul's
Unless you have
name was taken off of it,
easier
cause I sat with
for
Paul.
special needs development,
so-
and sort of a multiple family as well. In other
His
words,
family
could be like
wasn't
a two-family
consulted,
home.
Yeah.
when they took the name
A
off.
family of the parents could be living
So,
in one part and
you
a
know,
child.
that upsets me, but anyway, there was so much to
Right.
earlier, this discussion
Sort of,
around
we've got,
that
we've
lot
actually come across some plans for it.
that development in there. And I'm curious as to what those units will go for. Do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, we're gonna work together and see what we
I'm not sure of the exact price for each of the units, but they will have at least 24 of them that are
Right?
affordable.
Well,
Between,
existing in the town, there are
And it's the
three
perfect
group
place
homes here in
because
town.
you've got
Yeah, that's- yeah.
location to train,
Um,
location
But again, they are small and,
location
you
to
know,
Roach
it's limited.
Brothers,
Okay.
location to
Uh,
pharmacy.
Islington is where it's at. It is.
Yeah.
It's where it's at.
yeah,
It was also just, I'm on the planning.
just a little more
And
outside the box. a
that
little
we had,
more
in
Flexible.
Florida, we had
Revenue.
many meetings on that.
Oh, the meetings.
Fully
And
understand
meetings
that.
and meetings, but the thing
And
is,
that's something that is, I
such,
think,
I drive by it every day. when I listen to it,
land-wise,
but Until I
something
actually did the
that's
sidewalk,
much more feasible
really know
as
how
opposed
bad
to
it
a larger
was.
project.
When you walk around, you
can
go,
do
you get away from the
one or
sidewalk,
two,
you go way back.
you know,
I was like,
something
wow.
like that.
So, I
Right, so
know,
what do you mean?
Down on the
It was Westwood's only Superfund site.
yes.
Yeah.
Very
Environmental.
degraded
It was-
environmentally.
Oh,
yeah.
It was terrible. I mean, you know,
We're
just in
above,
terms
we're
of,
Yeah,
above
there's
our mark.
nothing beautiful
it
about
was,
that.
And with the rules we set in the 2020
you know, you get
housing
some
production,
people that are
we've kept up.
concerned about schools. we
Basically,
talk
if you
about
build
about
anything
schools
with
and
8
stuff,
units
but
or
it
more,
was,
there's an
I
affordability
was
requirement, so
in
that's allowed us to still.
forever that was a
above
great
it.
decision.
But
because it
we're
was
always,
just a
that
terrible
doesn't
site.
mean we
And
will
it
build
was gonna
more,
be
it just
Right.
means
And
there's
it's
other,
gonna be
we can
affordable
do
housing,
it more
it's gonna
locally
be put
supported,
to
so rather than it being a
productive
comprehensive
use.
permit that comes in,
Try-
we have what are called
I mean, it
local
was-
action.
The kids will go to Pine
Town
Hill, right?
supports it.
They won't go to the Downey.
Unless
Well, as
they
it's
can change the
currently
lines.
districted,
Yeah,
that can
as the
change,
the
right?
current lines
That's, yeah,
exist.
that's, it'll be up to the school committee
But
to decide.
our
For instance, University
conservation
Station had
land
the
is
same
a
discussion.
different
Most of
animal.
the-
No.
I mean, the issue, right, and the issue is in most cases,
And they
it's
had to
gonna
put
be
the one
under
bus anyhow, so
conservation
they
restriction, a
put the
permanent
resource in
conservation
there.
restriction
So the school department
that,
will
to
decide
my mind,
when they see
can't.
what numbers.
I
It's
just don't,
permanent.
it's
Also,
permanent, I
when
don't
the
think they
conservation
can be
had those
lifted.
same
There,
concerns,
there are
and the number of students is
certain
half
uses
what was
possibly, but
predicted.
again,
So, we
this
just don't know.
land
Never
is
forget
in
Paul had
a public trust.
My
still
kids have gone
privately
to
held.
every school.
There
in
are
town.
different types of ownership for the land in
You know,
town. Some of it is
without
held
any
by the
fuss.
select board, some of
And
it's held by the
people
Concom,
were
some of it's
so
held by
up
the
in
school
arms
commission, some of it's held
about
by the land
moving
trust, which is not associated with the town.
whatever.
And
And
then
the
there's
Sky
Hale,
didn't
which is
fall.
privately owned.
Just fine.
And they were all
And some of it has
educated
conservation
very
Somehow we
restrictions, some
all
of it
adjust.
doesn't,
We'll
some of it's
figure out
just
the school lines and the
by
populations
different groups.
and the
It's-
buses.
There's a lot of
The
different types.
town has
all
a
those
few
things.
pockets
This-
that,
Everybody
I
can
think the
get,
select board has a few
But I
pockets
remember
that
very
are
town
not,
parcels.
there are town-owned parcels, some are very inaccessible, some have wetlands crossings, which would make them challenging to
Well, it
reach,
has been,
just like
but it has been done
but none
before.
of my.
are doing
And
it.
so it's not out of the question, and
Some
Amanda,
of
you
the-
probably know more about where those parcels are, or no, I don't know if
Little
anyone's,
bit,
I don't know if anyone's really, like, I wish we could do a comprehensive assessment of it to say, this is where, to your point about what's kind of remaining, here are the
Well, we
pockets.
do have maps, so,
Yeah,
sure, and we do have people who know exactly where everything is.
I just
We've looked at some maps that have like streets that are far apart and there is undeveloped land in the middle, but there
Yeah,
are
there's a
houses
lot
on
of
both
there are
sides.
houses
You can
all
never
the way
get to
around the
it.
edge, so how do you get through to it? Unless, I mean, unless you do taking, makes someone unhappy, but like it's, that to me is a problem, I'm like, that exists.
Because we
it's-
managed to
It's
stay
not a
above
problem.
10%.
Well,
It's
yeah.
undeveloped land.
It's undeveloped land, but
I'm
it's
on the
always-
planning board, she's on the conservation commission.
It's a
Or
What can we
mixed
put
bag.
there? Yeah, it's,
Projects that work for the town.
But remember, you know, the town is not in the development game.
Everett Street,
Yeah.
it's not that we're going over those
We
numbers
have to
at length. and
Kinda
that's-
bring
well,
together
because you
people
have to
for a
have,
marriage.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
So,
the thing.
when the
I don't wanna
Everett
put
Street
it
project was
around
being
your
discussed and
conversation,
everything else,
but,
everybody was,
like
we were all
anything
trying to keep an
that
eye
is
on what the numbers were.
And there are other towns that didn't do it.
Needham is
Yeah.
right? Yes, yeah,
That big apartment complex right on 195 there?
yes, yep.
No, yeah.
Privately managed.
Because
So
they
that's
felt
what
off.
I meant.
So our job is to.
You know, and I haven't had my finger in any of it, but
But
I'm just.
let me ask, since I've got the conservation perspective, and you won't like my question, but,
So you'd say with a lot of pride in Westwood.
okay, yeah, well, no, it is about housing, it is about, you know, if,
I
It's
would
all
also like to
connected.
say
If you
that
think
what I
about,
like
like-
housing, it's not housing specific, but I
you know,
love our school system.
we have protections for
And I
wetlands in
want more
place.
people to have access to our school system. I'm not one of those people
But
like, oh
what
my
type
gosh,
of
we don't want more
development
people in the schools.
exists that
I
lets
want more
you
people in the schools. I want
build
people
more
who
closely to
might
wetlands
not have been
without
able to afford to
altering
live
them
in
or
Westwood.
harming them.
Why do we
I
want
mean,
it
families to
closer?
come in and have access
To-
to our
A, to
excellent
create more
services.
density.
Have you seen some of the parking lots in this
This
town?
is a
That's
huge,
where your land
huge
is.
value for me.
There was
There are
somebody who.
Okay,
so
so
many
parking
parking
lots is a
spaces.
question. I think that is an interesting question. Like, do we,
Kids who had
are we,
certain
I could talk about
disabilities.
parking requirements.
Well, we have parking
Town
requirements
taking
for everything
advantage
we
of our
do.
schools.
The bigger something
If
is, the
somebody
bigger.
explained to
That's
me
my
gonna be.
problem.
in
I
the
don't
school
think there should be so
system,
much parking.
it was actually
I
better.
understand where
Because
you're
if
coming
you
from.
have one
but
kid who
that's
has a
usually the city.
disability, it costs
How
so
can you
much
make a
to
determination
educate.
if that's too much
Mhm.
But
parking?
if you have
Unless
three
there's a
kids
formula
with the
based
same
on
disability,
There is.
cheaper.
I can't say there's too much or too
Because
little
you
because
have
it
a
must be
teacher.
There is
I
a
think
there is a
Some
formula that
some of
we
it
do
is
the
no
math.
longer
on.
being used, and maybe it was once useful, but
Oh,
like,
you're talking about existing older parking lots from
Special needs kids.
time gone by?
yes, some of the office buildings that do not have the capacity that they had 10 years, the people in the building that they had 10 years ago, like Meditech over on, like by the highway, and then the other one off not off Clapper Tree, but off, Washington. No, it's at like,
Really love and want to.
the other one
Which
was,
one? Sorry.
We have like a large,
behind,
even within the school system as well, we have a large,
behind Clapper Tree.
like a plethora.
There's an enormous
Oh,
parking lot, but I don't,
Moderna.
Moderna,
But that's
yeah.
not in the town.
We don't live in West.
We
End,
don't
That's
have
no-
that.
like trying to support those.
That's those are the examples I'm trying to say. Like
I
there are
understand.
just these
Yeah,
awful
and
buildings.
whether
that's
it's people with special needs or just people
It's
But that's
who
also
huge.
privately
couldn't
owned.
afford to live in
ones.
Westwood,
It is,
but would
it
love to
is.
raise their
But
families here because
one of the
great
Meditech
schools, great town
properties was up for
services, so
sale, right?
That's
About
what
to be.
one of the things I like about
And
it.
if it was
No.
no, that's that's why I'm talking loudly. If that were to be rezoned and sold to a developer and transitioned from what is it now, like medical research building into something more useful, like it's got to be
So should we
several
move to
acres.
what housing needs are currently not being
15
met?
acres, and it's not being used. It's been empty for a while.
Yeah, Medicine has a lot. I'd say the
So that's 15
most
acres
common
that
need is
previously
a lack of
developed,
starter
so it
homes.
wouldn't be a conservation issue. it
lack of
wouldn't be
starter
a
homes
state
for
Another
young
percent.
people moving in.
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Developers buy them
So
and raise
here's-
them and
Tear 'em
build
down and
big
build it
mansions
Where
on
that
these small
state-owned
lots.
parcel
It's
that you were
mad.
looking
Next
at
door to
for
me.
housing.
I used to live on.
Well,
Hampshire,
there is the,
Okay.
the MassDOT
Yeah,
parcel
yeah.
that's right by the Islington train station. So
Oh,
speaking to other things
Yeah,
we
yeah,
want
the
as young
bedrock, yeah.
people,
Corner of Ellis.
we have
Bedrock
one
lots
car
is the-
between
Well,
us,
that
which
was
is
that
prohibitive in
corner
this
Yeah.
town. I mean, but that's just,
He-
um,
the
it's,
history of Westwood.
it works for
Yeah.
us.
But the
We
MassDOT
work from
parcel
home,
is like
but
9 acres,
But
right?
I'd
It's right by the train
I'd
station.
love
like
to live
that's
right
the
next to the
perfect
train
place for an apartment
station
building.
with, you know, building with kind
all
of
of a
a
sudden
diverse
there
group
was
of
like
people in it and be able to train into Boston.
Yeah, and
And that's,
To make mansions.
a little mini
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Problematic with holding
On
on
this
to
tiny
old
little,
parcels
you know,
that
Which
they
was
don't use
just a
anymore.
small ranch.
And it affected the,
yeah.
No, it'd be difficult to
They'll
get them
never
to sell
give it
it.
up.
Yeah.
It changed the water table.
yeah, yeah.
Are we getting off? We might be a little off.
It's just, from
Yeah.
what was a small ranch.
What can we put in the,
Years ago,
For the reasons
sold
you
for,
hear,
you know,
I'm thinking,
well,
make sure yours get in
So
here.
starter homes and also like places for people like me to
Okay.
retire to, downsizing.
All right, so what do we like about housing
You
in
know,
Westwood
My
currently?
husband and I are empty nesters and we're living in our big house.
I like
Where else
the
we're gonna go? We'd like to stay in
small
town.
Small town
And it still
charm.
holds,
Yes, we
I'll
don't, we have,
endorse that, yeah.
yeah,
need
that's what I
more
like.
smaller.
And what, how would
Stop
you
it.
define
Small
that
home.
small town feel? Like what elements are there that make it feel like that?
single family
Which can be
homes.
lovely housing
We've
stock,
been
just, you know,
very
smaller.
close to the center, actually.
thousands and thousands of square feet.
Right, right. I don't have thousands
say-
of thousands.
No, I'm just
But
saying.
the point is, yeah,
but that's-
yeah, yeah.
That's where,
Textile styles
obviously, you
and-
know,
Yeah.
money and the
trees.
profit and the ability to.
Yeah,
But that's
plant
what
life, landscaping,
saying the maze was supposed to be.
Yes.
It was for many years.
Feels
It's
like
for many,
dramatic.
it's-
Yeah.
but it's changing.
It's not that the way.
No.
Even when you got a
Yeah,
small
yeah.
space here, you
Yeah.
got space
Yeah,
to
it
to
was,
yourself.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was, there was a lot of the cookie cutter, after the
Post-World War
Post-World
II.
War.
You know, it's great. I love walking on the sidewalk and
I live in the South Shore.
pass them and say hi. That's
Is
The
this,
starter house?
if you have a sidewalk.
We are first time home buyers, yes, in the South Shore.
Is there a way of kind of getting at this issue with through zoning, that a house can only be a certain
Walkability, yeah.
size? It's locked.
What street are you on now?
So we
I'm gonna
already,
defer to Nora.
we already have that, you
We all know
have to
that.
meet your setbacks unless you're already a pre-existing non-conforming development. And if you look at the maze,
Especially.
A lot of it
90% of the
is,
houses in there are, so they only have to get a special permit to build
Comes down to
larger
shape.
than,
Uh,
yeah. Now, we tried,
That's where I
maybe,
stand
we
with
had
it.
a resident,
Gotta come down to shape.
Jerry Wolf,
Well,
who tried to change the bylaw maybe about 5 or 6 years ago to
in order
to
to
strictly prohibit even a house that was non-conforming, and that was shot down.
yeah.
adopt a certain.
Voters didn't want to approve
Yeah.
that because they want, people want the ability to
Yeah.
redevelop their property, they just don't want their neighbors to.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing that I feel
I
like
don't
we don't have enough
need
of
8
in the rest
feet
is like two-family
bike
homes. I mean,
path,
I
but
think
I
we're
need
getting
a
better with
sidewalk where
multifamily
someone
homes, but I
safely
think
can
two-family
navigate
homes
the
is a
street.
fabulous concept.
We only have one district that allows
Hold on.
two-family homes, the general residence
I will have
district
it.
in Islington, which is
Um,
principally on Washington Street,
Yeah.
Fairview.
Let's
Yeah.
see,
and
okay,
some
so,
other streets in
Oh,
that
good.
area.
is
That's
the
a
what we
zoning
like
It's a
and
zoning
what
issue.
housing
Two-family
are
homes
Homes are
currently
only
not
allowed
being
in those
met.
locations, or
Public
convert
transportation.
a
Oh,
single
how,
family
yeah,
to a
greater
two-family home
housing
if it was built before
choice.
1938.
right within the
Oh, wow.
vicinity of.
1938.
Their train
1938.
station.
Okay.
Public
I
transit.
don't know
Interesting
why they
year.
picked that
Housing
date.
or trend?
That's
I
That's
love
been,
that year.
that's been in the
I think
zoning
it's a
bylaw
great
for
thing.
many years.
And I-
December 31st, 1938. If you're older
Some days
than
I'm
that, you
like-
can apply for a special
So you don't
permit
think there's
to
enough
convert a
of it?
one-family.
I don't think there's enough
Interesting.
housing
intended to
choice
save
or housing
older
availability
homes that
near
were
transit.
very large, and I think it was from the
We all
1970s
realize
that they
what we just went
imposed
through
that law
with the
because people
MTA.
were starting to tear down.
Yeah.
That's
private
gonna
land.
change.
That,
That's gonna change, and not
I
just
want to see
here,
what does change.
everywhere.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
curious to see how that plays out in the next few years.
I will say starter single-family homes. There's not enough of that, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Or
Big
I
old
don't think
homes.
there's too many big old homes on
equivalent,
the
you know, it
street.
doesn't
I don't
have to be
think it's
single-family
Gay
homes, but
Street,
options
maybe,
with
or-
that.
That's a lot of single family, but are you more concerned that it's affordable?
Size
Affordable, yeah, or size of,
Entry
like,
level.
Yeah.
I'm like,
first-time home buyer
like,
type
we
thing.
just, right now, we rent a two-bedroom, one-bath. I can live right now in a two-bedroom, one-bath, and I'd love to have that, and,
We just want to own it so we can start painting.
yeah, I wanna paint it, you know, I wanna plant trees outside of it and
I
do
would
things
love to
like
see a
that.
neighborhood,
On Washington Street.
you know, small,
Yes, yes.
Because I
starter
was,
homes.
because when we had talked about that, I drove by, I was like, oh.
And they gotta be zoned in a way that they aren't gonna
Put a couple
grow,
of
and
pieces
so people
together
move
and
in,
put
get their
something
families
there.
rooted there, we
Yep.
can start a family in our thirties, have that place, raise them in the schools,
That could
and
be a
then,
little
as their
opportunity.
careers progress, move and,
The larger home.
move into larger homes, as
the
opposed
How
to
much was that
the,
saying?
you buy them
Affordable
and you
housing
build
is
it,
not
which
that
is
big, it's
certainly
not
attractive,
currently being
but
done in
it's
It's
not,
not, although we've improved tremendously.
Creates a lot
But
of
affordable by, affordable, but
Yes.
I get, but the 80% of a high number is still unaffordable.
Once you
What is
gentrify the system,
affordable now?
yeah.
then
Well-
the schools go bye-bye.
That's a great
Now all of a
question.
sudden, the value of your home
It
isn't
has
so high,
different
because you
Yeah.
don't get that regular school system.
Like,
in
like the
town.
colloquial,
And
like
it
average
creates
person
a
might
lot of
think
problems.
affordable is
It's a
different than the way
domino
it's
effect.
used in
Gonna
like
keep adding to
environment.
not to like,
We have deed
we haven't
restricted
really built this
affordable
out.
homes.
Yeah,
and
you
deed
know,
restricted
I-
apartment
We don't
homes.
gotta fill it.
housing with
Rents
access
are
to
still
our,
$24
not
to
just transit
$3,500 a month.
Right,
That
like
is
I'd
not
love to-
truly affordable to most families.
So
Most
it's
houses.
whether it can be
A
mixed
household
use or it
of
could be
one
like
has to have below
cluster housing,
90,000.
still
Yes.
single family
Yes.
technically, but
It's a very
I've
high
seen
number.
some work in
So what's
Seattle where you
affordable
can fit-
is not really matching the
you can
cost of
fit, like,
living or
25, 30
the
units an acre, they're
availability.
still
And that's because
single
we're
family
in the
homes, but
Boston,
they're
Quincy.
clustered
Yeah.
in quite a bit, but
What is it?
something
Boston,
that,
Quincy,
whether it's
Cambridge.
mixed use or that,
Quincy,
something where
Cambridge
I can pop
district,
Yeah.
downstairs
and so
and
the
out
prices
to
that those
kind
rents
of
are set at,
store
as
in the
expensive
town
as
center
Westwood
or
is,
the
Boston
cafe
and
or the
Cambridge are
market
so much
or
more
the
expensive.
library.
So our rents
That's
are
attractive.
artificially increased.
I work in Boston, and two people that work for me moved into Boston, and the rents are
Outrageous.
extraordinarily expensive.
Yeah.
And the only way you can afford it, especially as a young person, is having roommates, and, you know, so it's not easy. I mean, I suppose as a single young person, you can get away with it or do it, you might not have mind as much, but it's really hard to do
Yeah.
that.
I actually know someone,
Putting up housing
my dad knows this
can't
family
be
too,
done
so,
Everything has a
I
ripple
have a family
effect.
there.
Yeah.
We have to,
Her older sister Cassie
God's
that
will follow
I
it
grew
all
up
the
with.
way
It.
out before we
Luke was
can
one of my
make
groomsmen at my wedding.
It's a great idea to
Cassie
grow
and
up
her
a place next to your
husband,
building.
they lived in the seaport, and
if
she didn't work for
it's
like
not
a
gonna
whole year.
support
They
the
were
area, or
unless
it's
you
gonna
like that
overwhelm.
extreme 1%.
Yeah.
Not
Infrastructure.
suggesting
For
a
a
hundred
lot of
thousand
people.
units,
Yeah.
but I think there could be
Yeah.
an influx of some children, because
No,
I also think
DEI.
Okay.
the average
Wanna turn the
number of
question to
children
you?
per family has decreased a lot, so I think you can still fit in more adults.
Housing needs are not currently being
Not
met.
have
And
a
for
dramatic increase
for
in
me, it's a
children.
bit about the life cycle too. Like we are,
Housing needs are not being met.
we don't have kids yet. Like I said, we just need kind of the
There's a lot of young-ish.
2-bed, 1-bath. I'm happy to have a place where I'm paying into the tax base of the town without a kid yet.
Super
But there's,
wealthy.
I do indirectly through the rent we pay, but it's, it's,
Professional.
Sarah on
eh, I keep thinking,
They're what?
Sarah
I keep
on
thinking
the-
about this
That's
whole
the old
grant,
address.
whether it's the Islington
I don't know
station
what- I
or,
can't remember her name.
I've got friends who are affluent, who work in
I just
Boston,
think
they
of
got
other people.
professional careers at great
Back to
firms.
Westwood.
If they could live right off of a Route
I don't know.
128 station or right off the Islington station and commute in,
Go to Ann.
and then they're spending their
But
tax
I'm
dollars
thinking
at,
of,
at
you know,
Neroli or the restaurants down by Route 128 or,
Chinese
not their
families
tax, I mean,
who live on my
the town's
street.
getting tax money
get
from
what
what they're spending at the Target to get the Wegmans to get the groceries they need. Like, I know people who absolutely would live in a place like this because we are blessed to have not just one train line, but 2 train lines in this town that have th- 3 if you count Amtrak, and that are like
Well, 2 locations.
25 minutes door to door with like, it's actually a great business
Is there anything that
for
you
young,
see that
affluent
you
professionals.
think should be
but
improved?
It's, there's a mismatch, like the development isn't there, and those are,
There should be
that to me is
starter
one
houses,
audience
and I
that
don't know how you do that.
wouldn't have the disproportionate impact on the
That's
schools.
why it hasn't
And
been
the other
done.
would be,
Nobody's figured out
I
the
think once
solution, how to do
people
that.
have kind
Land,
of, the
know
kids have moved
how
on,
you
but they wanna
have-
stay in town and be part of the community,
That's another problem.
having the option of like,
But even
and
when-
maybe they don't want multifamily, maybe they still want
Have a
something that's kind of their own
sneaky
space with
suspicion
their
will
own
be
yard.
sometime in the near
Um,
future.
I like what they've done at the lodge,
Translate maybe
yeah.
what you're
They will
saying
be
Yeah.
is,
either
what's
bought
missing is
before anybody
Yeah.
knows about it,
housing
Right.
that's accessible
or
to young professionals.
snapped up very, very quickly when
Or-
people do know about it.
Like,
Just
And
have,
not for
people that
starter
can
prices.
cost
and
Yeah.
not
Oh,
for
and
starter
developers
prices.
will buy them,
workforce that,
you know,
What- of
for
course,
cash,
of
you
course,
know.
exactly.
There's a
Correct.
so
I
like,
think that,
so
and that's,
because
you know,
my wife and I
open
live
up
with my dad and my
debate.
mother. There's the home right next to it where
It was close to my job at the
ours,
time.
actually it's across, but
So
it was bought.
I was at
on the
Eversource.
market for like a very short
So
period of
we
time. It was
started
bought.
in Westwood, started
Yeah,
looking out,
exactly.
and happened to find a
And I'll say, yeah, we
Hard
looked
and
at,
really cute
um,
accessory unit we like.
we found a really cute accessory unit.
Makes it
I
hard
think
to
that's,
custom.
and going back to like the small town charm thing, we felt that here in a way that we
So
did.
there's this
That's
place in
it's a
Milton.
big
I
positive.
keep talking
We
to
felt
them,
that
I wanna learn
here
about this place.
in a way that we
Brother-in-law
didn't
just lived
somewhere
there.
else. We were able to find something that
Raised
was
his family in Milton.
comparable to
A
some
modest home,
apartment
sold his
buildings,
home.
but that
Was on a wait list for this
Also with the,
over 60, over 55 community of townhomes in Milton. And the name of it is escaping me right now. Beautiful townhomes, like, you know, three townhomes in a building. You know, probably 10 or 12 buildings with 3 townhomes in each. And he had to have his name on the list for this housing. He waited 20 years
Everybody.
to get
That's a long time
the
to
call
wait.
that he was available
Wow.
for a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhome.
Popular with
He paid
existing
$450,000.
So many of these houses are
He will only be able to sell it for that when he ultimately goes, but it's privately owned. I called the town of Milton and said, what's going on with, how do we do this in Westwood? And they said it's privately owned, so a group of citizens who just kind of wanted to, you know, build some housing for seniors. But I like, with that model, somehow it works, it's working somehow, for it to be affordable homes, beautifully maintained, I mean, gorgeous, and affordable. I mean, affordable by any, where can you buy a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath home in Westwood for $450,000?
So Chase Estates in Cedar Hill, the problem is
That
that people don't wanna sell them.
generation,
So
my mother's.
in the nineties,
one of
we had a
the-
program where those two
no
neighborhoods
interest
had
in
affordable
accessory
homes that were
Right.
or
sold to people
Yeah.
for
creating
97,000
accessory
or
apartment,
100,000 back then.
living
So those
amongst
homes,
her.
if they were sold
Yeah,
today,
it's
would be in the
It's a generational thing.
320 range, yes.
It depends
Would
on
I-
the, some of them have like a
I
five
would,
bedrooms.
but
and
I have a
multiple
wife
homes
and
that
children.
But
they're
the
not-
owners are
So you wouldn't?
trying not to sell
not
them,
wouldn't.
because if they
It's just
hold
that
on to
might
them
be
for the
reluctant.
full 50 years of their
I'm just
ownership,
curious to
It's
see
they
how
can
that
sell
law
them at
is
market
going
rate.
to be adopted.
Oh.
So more
I
recently,
think
50?
my
it's 50
I kind
years.
of
So,
50. I was
so
gonna
from
say
96,
Oh,
97,
okay.
they're
buy-in
into the,
now.
into the 2040s.
Don't think
So
So they
it's
can pass them on to their children and
On a weekend.
they can't pass them on to
Not
their
now.
children. They have to
In-laws, so you might-
live
live
long
for 50
enough.
years.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
it could be-
So people are hesitant to sell for that reason. If they sold today, they're selling
Wow.
for 320 to 350.
Now, again,
If they can
everything's
somehow
changed.
hold on to them, they sell for whatever the market rate is.
Then you would just have
My
a huge
experience was
gain in
people
terms of.
Right, so
Yeah.
the
So
difference,
it's a big
True.
difference.
the difference is the deed rider on, Westwood was
Yeah.
the first town that had a program like that, and the state deed rider had this 50-year limit. Probably the place in Milton has the newer state deed rider,
Yeah.
which is perpetual, so you
Oh.
don't have that incentive to the owners.
Yeah.
Their increases is just, reasonable
Right.
increase, they built a little bit of equity, nothing like that.
So what's the
I,
situation with
we
the
think that was an
houses.
interesting question.
behind the temple?
That's Chase
Part
Estates,
of
yeah, so
my-
Same
You don't
thing?
have to
same
have
thing,
an
so
actual
25 of
reaction.
the homes in that
Gut
development are
reaction,
affordable
which is-
You're not talking about
homeownership
Abbey Road,
properties.
not those
That
kind
has
of.
to
Oh,
do with
I'm
that.
sorry, is that what you mean?
No,
The
no,
newer
no, no,
ones?
no.
The older
What
ones
is
behind the
the
tower.
deal with Abbey
I
Road?
came
So,
out here
Abbey
for
Road has
college,
two
the
affordable
education's great,
townhomes,
and
and they
like-
have the
like
newer
many
deed
friends
rider,
from all over
which
the
means
country
that
and
the
all over the
property
world
owners who live in them
came
have
here
no
to study
incentive
and learn.
to stay in
Hang
them
on
when
to
they're
it.
done. So,
One
in
of the
senior
things
housings,
that-
they can only sell to another senior,
You say,
so
you
someone,
want-
one member of the
people
household
say,
has to be
but
over
one of the things
55.
that keeps us from staying
Um,
here.
But there's no incentive for them to hold
sometimes
on. They
that
can sell them
we
when
go
they're ready to sell them, and they'll go to
I
new
travel to visit my friends
affordable,
in
eligible
Seattle
households to buy those.
God, I know a lot of people.
Colorado or other places
And
like
same thing with the
Utah.
condos
I
at,
think-
we have 10 affordable condos at University
So
Station.
maybe, I don't know if it would
And
sell
it's the
to
same thing, so
the
they
people
have
who grew
the
up out here,
appropriate
but I
universal
think it
deed
would,
rider, and when the people who live in them are ready to sell, they sell to another
Yeah. Well, can I make one
affordable
more
tenant.
point?
So that'll work
The other
like
thing is I think there's
the
a way
place
to
you
do
mentioned
it
in
to
Milford.
buy it,
And anything
which
that,
is,
Milton, sorry,
you
and
know,
anything
that
we do
we have a lot
from
of
this point on
characteristics
will
that
be under a similar deed
Right.
rider.
2006 was the year the state made that change.
Yeah.
So even like we've had a couple of the homes in
a
Chase
lot
Estates,
of
Cedar Hill Estates
nature
come up for
surrounding
resale.
us.
When that happens, the state allows us to
I,
replace it with the universal deed rider that never expires.
you know,
But
like,
unless that happens,
some of the
then
stuff in
that's
Seattle is
earmarked.
interesting, not all of
Right.
it would
Have no
work here,
claim
but
on
it
those homes.
kind of
So,
things
Yeah.
so
cluster
families who
together.
bought their
Keep it-
homes in
keep it on the
1995,
side.
1996
Yeah.
are trying very hard to, hold on to them.
Stay healthy.
Collars.
Yeah.
And if they don't, those homes will be
Yeah.
sold.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Put back
Got
in the market
dormers
for
on
affordable
it, you know, there's
households.
things
Okay,
you could
so
do
guys,
that.
we're saying,
What's
we
the,
do
there is,
very
I
well
think,
with
I
all
believe
people.
you could make, get a little creative.
We
Is that
do
what
well
we're
with old
saying?
people. I think we've done very well with older people.
There
Do
are,
okay?
I think so, except there are a lot of people now who are really struggling to still pay their taxes on
Yeah.
fixed incomes because the property values have skyrocketed.
And that's
People who
if
bought
you
their
raise it
homes
very
in the
low.
70s or 80s for under 100,000, maybe to
Those were
200,000, their homes are now worth $1.5 million to $2 million. And they're
That's
paying
huge
taxes on
taxes.
that.
The taxes,
Remote jobs,
especially
that's
when you're at
something
the
that
age and you're in fixed income is.
Yeah.
in demand right
I mean, I
now,
talked to
but it's
Yeah,
being
like,
this-
did you
this
see in
loneliness
Hometown Weekly,
epidemic where
there
we don't
was,
get a lot of social
what I
time
got looked like a modest
at our
house.
jobs.
It
And
sold for
something
way
that I've
over a
noticed
million.
amongst
There's almost nothing
subset
in
of
town
my
that sells for
group
less
is
than $1 million.
they're
We have a
looking
tear
for
down in our neighborhood that sold for $1
For
million.
nine-something,
out
yeah,
something
there are
where they
others,
live
yeah.
near their friends because they
A
are
house that's
alone
in
during
very
the
bad
day and they
condition,
want to have
buying itself for
a
900,
social
nothing for
evening
less than that.
after that.
Yeah.
So I have a friend group that's actually looking
Somebody
at doing
told
this
me
Seattle style
that
shared housing in
there's a
Vermont
deal for
because they can
people
get a
at
property, they
Fox
can
Hill.
put 6 little houses on it
But
before
they
it's
don't.
a zoning issue. And I
They get
think
away with something.
for a certain group of
Fox Hill.
people,
There's nothing
perhaps
cheap about
generations
Fox
ago,
Hill.
I was just gonna say, I don't know what
for it.
Their co-op, is that what you're referring to? So yeah, they all buy into the co-op and it's,
I don't know quite how it works, but.
Yeah, so rather than you don't actually purchase your apartment, you purchase a share overall condo.
On taxes, so I don't know what it was.
Yes, so I'm picturing like 4 small
Just
houses,
because I overheard you guys, I didn't
maybe
show
not a
this
tiny
slide 'cause
house
I just wanted
size,
it
but
in
a little
case, but
larger
that's
than
an
a tiny
example
house.
of how the taxes
And then maybe
change.
there's like a
So
shared
the levy
parking
increase from
space over on the
2024
side, so you don't all
8%,
have like a
and then they also
driveway.
shifted the tax.
Yeah.
bill
Let me,
that
so this
commercial
is
carried
like,
more of
this
it.
is not a
But
high
what
quality
happened was
picture,
the
but
average
it's kind of cottage
residential
style
tax bill
housing
actually
around,
increased 12%.
you know, and you got
just
kind of a
based on
shared
property
space out there and
values,
you
so
can live in
see
that
how
together.
The home values changed and how your tax bill changed.
Yeah,
Gingerbread houses.
yes, the gingerbread house, exactly,
the
kind of
average
like, isn't that great?
Right,
Like,
and there might be like a shared garden center, and then there's
Yeah.
a
Just make sure
cluster
you guys
here,
get
and
to the
another
last one.
I'd love to live in that with my kids, we're all working remotely.
Yeah.
And that's
People of a you know, could be my friends or I'm moving into something.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
Or is it just up
Yeah.
to building?
I think maybe another
If
thing,
you
oh, I'm
wanna
sorry, what
put
did you say,
multiple
Elijah?
buildings on
I was
a
gonna
single
try to
parcel,
shift the conversation if we could. We talked about our lakes. We talked about our what needs need to be met or improved. So maybe we can look at identifying goals
Oh
and
gosh,
There's another
strategies.
page?
This is
More
where you're
homework.
putting your ideas, so not just
Identifying
talking about
goals
what's
and
good
strategies
bad, but how
for
do you-
more housing,
I can
How
write
do
for a
you
little
put
while.
that into?
for housing choice
You
and
guys got a
stability.
lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
Identify goals and strategies for promoting
Saying
housing choice and
cottage,
stability.
cottage style housing,
Is a starter
no,
land.
What about it?
I love it.
You'd love to
I
see an
think-
area here in town with like, say,
What are we,
like. the-
California?
Yes,
This is what we're, I'm
Yes!
asking him if
come
we
on,
could
make
sell that in New
Massachusetts
England.
more hip, I think, I'd live in that. So I was saying we
have
took,
our own version of that. So in
Which
New
is what?
England, it's the Cape Cod one.
what is the
Yes.
Cape Cod, but and it's not just the style though, it's the layout, so look at like all of these around,
Proximity to the.
it's the
other houses.
proximity to the other houses.
Cape homes, you know how I talked
Single
about like
home
the
feel in a kind of
post
housing.
World War II, there was a lot
Yeah.
of federal efforts to
Yeah.
produce housing. That's where Cape
Quite a
homes
wet
came out of.
places
I
to
think-
know.
Yeah.
Is where they, and that's also where the
started at a
idea of a
townhouse.
subdivision
My
was
wife and I
created.
Yeah.
And if you go to the original Levittown, it's called, in New York, and then
At
there's
the
a
upstairs
second one in
downstairs, you had bedrooms,
Pennsylvania.
and it just.
It's a
called
bunch of,
Levittown?
Levittown,
Levitt.
William Levitt developed it.
Okay.
And it was all
There was a
meant to be
time when.
entry-level people, a lot of veterans, and the houses were close together, all in a neighborhood, and they were
Okay.
it wasn't like you see neighborhoods now with like a lot of dead ends. It was like a
Okay.
true like loops and everything,
the
like a true
word.
neighborhood. And the
But-
yards were small, but it was intended to be
But it's,
accessible,
I mean, because there is limitations on
entry-level home
development
buyers.
Yeah,
Close together,
so
but they
that's-
look like capes instead of a bungalow.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah.
You have
And they were built for the returning soldiers from World War II.
Yeah.
And so everybody had a common kind of
Yeah.
bond to themselves.
It doesn't have
But
quite the
that was,
same,
we don't,
no, there's a visceral kind of.
God, don't have that
And
same
you
kind of
save
bond.
the
And,
cost
you know,
of providing
it's-
utilities.
it was, yeah, like if you go down
You only
DFW
have to
Parkway in West
run
Roxbury,
so much
all
water,
that is all war.
You know,
houses.
Yeah.
That was
all
all
of
built
those things.
from 45 to, you know, early to mid
I'm a
50s.
big
And it's
proponent
beautiful
of
house.
single lot
Nice, very nice.
Oh, yeah.
You
I
know?
actually, I have family that lives in the second Levittown. So,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
That's
they've
why, you
all-
know, you made me feel dumb.
No, you
Now
learn
I
about
know.
it in grad school too, but,
I
but I was like, hey, I know that place. But like, it's funny now, you see those neighborhoods today, and like zoning's a lot less restrictive once you kind of venture outside
multiple
New England.
structures.
And like, they have like weird, like
Smaller houses,
30-story, like
couple
additions.
Things that
kind of,
people
like, off
added
the
and
side,
kind of, yeah.
Houses
And
and then
the maze across from the high school,
Exactly.
that was wartime
multi-age,
house.
multicultural.
I like, it's a-
Share
they
resources,
seem
like
to have
going to
fun in the maze.
Costco. and
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
distribute paper towels
it's
to
its own
everybody.
identity.
It's its own
Share
identity.
resources.
Yeah.
The fourth village.
Energy.
Yeah.
Well, us retired people can catch the kids off the bus when they come home from school.
Oh, and if you
When we're,
just,
our kids
they
are
brought
going
up
to
taxes in
smaller
their
houses,
conversation,
someone
if
else
Oh.
anyone's
more bigger
curious.
house. I know there are models.
I
for
didn't
this,
show this
like in
slide, but it was, I
Florida.
knew it could
Yeah.
potentially
I
come up,
just
so I
think
wanted to
that's
have it
it's a
prepared.
great way of sharing
They were
resources.
talking about how
you know,
property
more
values have gone up so
community
much with
village
raising
care of each
taxes,
other.
and so that just
absolutely
gives you
Can't
a
imagine
sense of
flying
how,
westward, but I love
even
the
though the levy
concept.
increase was only 8%,
You
the
know,
average
have
residential bill went up
just
12%
community areas
just based
where,
on property
You know,
values.
neighborhoods
Okay.
just sort of are in community.
Not to write any of this on the sheet, but I'm,
Isn't it?
Is this is kind of interesting
no, but
question to
anyway,
ask, but
that's
I
kind of-
put
I know
on
that's
kind of my
still-
business hat and also
really
my
growing,
FinCom hat,
I
but
just love that idea.
Yes.
I think
I mean,
it,
it is
the
nice.
question about the
I mean,
marginal
that's your
cost
job.
of schools.
If I had that, I'd have a mental one.
Because it's, I'm also a big believer in like,
Your job, Elijah.
you can provide opportunity to
I think
people
we're
to
all
come and live in
guessing
this
about
town
whose
and have
job
their kids in
finger
these schools.
pointing is a
It's
little bit,
great
and I
for
know
them
also-
personally.
I think the important thing
Ethically, I think we have a moral obligation to provide that opportunity to a number of people. But I do also understand the pressure of like, if you
I think for me,
have,
I understand.
how do you balance it in a way that
like,
makes
from an
sure
urban planning perspective, how it's much more
you're not
difficult
driving
to have
down like
different types
how
of
much available
housing
revenue
involved,
there
and
is for
we've already
people
covered that,
so
I'm
much
not
So
from
if
a
you
tech
actually look at
I know within
enrollment
Westwood,
data from the last
there
10
is,
years
it's gotten
or
better
so,
within the past few years.
Going down.
Yeah.
And that's
There
because
is
of the age
NIMBYism,
distribution
and I think for me,
we showed earlier.
like to see.
The thing I have to be cautious about is the
Fair
Fair
Housing
Housing
Act, yeah.
It's in my backyard
Not
because
base a housing
I
decision
think
based on
that's,
school
I think that's one
enrollment,
of the
because that would
biggest
be familial
over,
status
like,
discrimination.
overarching
The
hurdles
other piece
for
of it
housing
is,
production is
in Massachusetts,
if a community doesn't want to get behind it and
so
wants
if a
to
student
preserve it,
moves
as
into
we
a
saw with Amanda's, I
town,
think it was
the town is
74,
legally required
Right.
to provide education,
77.6.
so it's not that you
single family.
can't
I think if you're not
consider
building
it,
an
it's
open
that
as
it can't be
community
the
to
reason
allow
not to do
more
it.
housing of different varieties,
Yeah.
types and
So,
different diversities,
This
it's
is,
gonna
we
make it
just built a
harder.
new
So
school,
I think
has significant
educating
more
people,
capacity
like,
than
you know, yourself
was
coming to
needed.
these kinds of sessions
for
is one
future
of my
growth.
biggest goals.
So, I would say on that front, we're actually,
Immediate change is always hard.
Yeah.
and that's always something that
Even as
I
sometimes
get
seems
it's a
like
concern, but legally,
postings
we
with it, like,
cannot.
talking about it.
But on the other
What's going on
hand,
at Everett Street, and I'm like,
property
great.
values
But then,
in this
it's like,
town
what's going on? Well, we gotta, we have to do something about this. I'm like, all right.
school system.
Yeah, it's
Calm down.
this,
If we
um,
start
That's
They're,
right, that
they're
ship has
building up
sailed.
now,
Yeah.
property
behind
values,
the eight ball now.
and nobody will be happy. So,
I know that there's been a law about ADUs, and I'd love to see more accessory dwelling units, is that right?
Maybe explain what.
Yeah, so
I'd
they,
like to
as
see
of
more.
February second, they're allowed by right. Any
Yeah.
single-family home in town can have an ADU by right, as long as it doesn't exceed 900 square feet.
so the school system,
that's
as
a
far
great
as that
solution
goes, no
for it.
matter how you look at it, is a very big deal.
You don't like that
It's a
idea?
very big deal to the residents of this town.
Oh,
Oh, it's what they used to call mother line.
I mean, I would say in terms of like coming up with
It's-
ideas,
it's like
think
if
about
you
it from the
Yeah.
perspective of, we do have a declining
Apartment
youth
that's,
population,
you know,
therefore
building an
fewer
apartment onto your
families
home,
coming
or
in.
a separate building, it could be a separate
And
structure
truly
on
grow
your
property,
property, right?
right? Rather than maybe
Um,
moving in
so that
later
you
when
could
your
have,
parents start to make a little more
parents
money.
living there, whatever,
Um,
just, you could have,
And then,
it doesn't have to be related to,
you know,
just.
coming back to the land conversation, there's a reason towns hold on to land. I'm not saying the town is planning on
You know,
doing
when I was
anything
on the
with that land.
finance commission.
But that's the types of needs that arise, it's municipal needs, like schools, like a new firehouse, like insert.
A certain percentage of
municipal
So,
service
so we have a law that allows it
That's
by
one of the
special permits
reasons
for up to
that we need
2%
have
of the
options, because
single and
at the end of
two-family
the
homes in
day,
town.
And
And
never hit that
we
number.
don't even come
You can't
close to hitting it,
just
we're
come in and
probably at
post it.
1.5%, and we've
So
had
the
this
idea is
law
how
in
do you
books for
find a
30
balance?
years, so.
That's
Yeah.
still.
But
That's
now,
about
but now the
right.
state is changing it,
creates
so
opportunity for the
special
next
permit goes
generation.
away.
yeah.
Any restrictions, the current law says it has to be owner occupied, that goes away. So
So
it's just anybody who wants an
So
accessory.
what are our goals and
dwelling unit.
strategies
Is the
for
same
promoting
setbacks?
housing choice and stability?
Yeah, the zoning setbacks still apply,
apply.
the
Well,
parking regulations still
First and
apply.
foremost, we
That
wanna
may
keep
be
up our
Unless you're within a half a
SHI,
mile of a train station,
percentage.
then there's no parking.
but those rules are already baked in.
Can I ask
Is there strategy for that?
The strategy is that when anyone wants to do anything more than 8 units, they have to give us 8 affordable units.
What made
Okay.
you, what made you
Do you
want
want
to be
to
involved in
change
the
the
finance?
affordability rate?
No.
It's terrible.
Okay,
No,
so keep
because
the-
I think we kind of redlined it last time, because, you know, back, up until 220, we were in a battle, because they were gonna do a new census in 2020. And we were wondering, with the population growth, where were we gonna land? We ended up being okay, but at the time we were doing the first
What a
housing
surprise.
production plan, we were
Yeah.
very aggressive,
And then they got you to me.
Do you feel?
and it's worked out, so I don't see any reason to change that.
Well, you're adding some things on here, aren't you?
Yeah, so
She's got
I'm in,
ideas, that's
or it'll
okay.
all end up my stuff.
Involved in that, do you feel like you have wanted to
I would say not sell Meditech, but you could say rezone or consider rezoning.
Okay.
It's not ours to sell, it's,
Right.
it's privately owned.
You can't make anything happen. Well, but we can
Rezone.
zone it. We can zone it, no matter who owns it, we can zone it, and we can change the zone.
That's why I feel so strong.
We,
We're gonna give everyone a few extra minutes, but about 5 more minutes.
I love Paul Hannon.
we tried to use
So how we
the
do with that last
Meditech,
question?
for, we had a situation
Discussion for
where
a
we were
later
looking
day.
to
I
locate
guess
the
this is kind of more like
potential
an extra,
drug rehab center.
extra commentary, I guess.
So,
So communal living.
some
would
of
be
us
down.
had the bright idea.
I'm not kidding. I added that here, intra-generational community style homes.
Because
Which actually
much too
isn't that
valuable
different than a traditional
for
neighborhood.
any
Yeah, intergenerational and,
Right?
and
So-
come in
multicultural,
and set up
and
shop,
you know.
if
and-
Meditech ever did
And
it.
that's all about the cost
And
of the land to
it's just
start
too
with. and
valuable
being
lot,
able to
so
do
it's
that,
the
because
only
right
place in town
now,
it could go.
Even if we adjust our
But they
zoning,
could never
so
afford
that
it unless it was
it's
a,
easier to, so
you
right
know,
now our
very
zoning only
high-end, what do they
allows
call,
significant townhouse
Malibu,
developments, high
Yeah.
density
you know,
townhouse
recovery
developments
centers or
for
something like
seniors.
that for
Doesn't
the
allow
stars.
for-
You know?
Really?
Be like
No.
Westwood Lodge,
And you
Round
can
Table.
build
The
townhomes,
neighborhood
but you
live
still
off.
have to have
Yeah.
Like you
40,
wouldn't believe.
square
If it
feet,
goes get
40,000
out of that
square
meeting
feet per
alive.
unit, so it doesn't really help.
Yeah.
It's age restricted. So we
You
can
know,
change our
there
zoning
was
though.
reasonings
So
for
that it
doing
could,
it. We ended up
include things
making
other
a
than
hodgepodge on
We
the
could,
other side
we
of
could
Main
do that. It's
Street
called the open
Rotary.
space residential
and
development
we got it
section
through
of
the
our bylaws.
Attorney
So we
General.
could make changes
See,
to
the
give
problem when
density
you
bonus
make
for
any
any
kind of change,
townhouse developments. The
you get it
problem
through
is
town meeting,
that
but then you
the
gotta get it
developer
through
who
the
purchased
Attorney
the
General.
land to build
Yeah.
those
And
townhomes
that's the
can
sticky
still
one,
make
you know?
far more money
Yeah.
So-
building single-family
That's how
units.
that
Right.
turns out.
Large
So
single-family homes.
be very
that
leery of
So how do
Meditech.
It doesn't, so you need the town to fund
Everett
that.
That
Street.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, Everett
It's
Street.
being built,
These
it's being
taxpayers
going, I drove by it
Have to
today.
come up with that.
It's gonna be good.
We need to find.
It's a little different.
It
Is
is
it?
different. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be really useful.
I do.
It's
Yeah.
not like anything that we have in this town, you know, but it does make me think of,
I've actually,
going back to like what I've seen when I visit my
I don't
friends
know how
out west.
familiar you are with
it
the
is It's a
project.
bit like that.
A little bit.
A little
Okay,
bit.
so it's
Different.
7 acres. It's this weird triangle, sort of like that shape, and it has a Y-shaped. It's 2 streams that meet and go out as one, so it's like a Y-shaped river. So they had a really difficult time like figuring out how to put stuff on that because they had an area that they can't touch in the center in that Y shape. So what they have is
oh, I know.
in the back, smaller portion,
He's wacky.
housing,
It's an economic
and in the
situation.
front
That's what
it's
it
mixed
comes down
use
to.
housing on the second
We
and
can do
third
what we-
floor and commercial on the
We can
ground
open
floor,
our
and then
zoning,
they have
make
a
it as, you know, free and
a
available to people
playground.
as possible, but until we
I've heard of a
find
dog park.
a source of
Can't
income.
remember.
There's like a nice little path, and they cleaned up the
There needs to
stream
be
real
some-
nice. That was part of their
some
permitting
financial incentives, either
conditions.
for developers
And then
to
they'll
develop
have
the kind
like
of housing we
bike
want,
parking, and there'll be like cute
or
little
people
shops.
to
So it should be really nice. I think like it should look a lot
donate
better
this
than it did a
land
year
and do
ago.
this, and then it's gonna be a huge tax.
We've been trying to develop that
Yes.
property
And
for 30 years.
the
yeah.
playground, one of the selling points that the developer was using, I think this is still in. It's going to be
There's so little land
only
left in
publicly
Westwood.
accessible
There is so expensive.
accessible playground. So they'll have like wheelchair accessible stuff on the playground, and it'll be open to the public. So that was one of the
No, no, I'm just
selling
saying.
points
I
that the
don't know,
developer
I don't know
came
how.
up with.
I think there's, you know, again, like to
I know his sister-in-law.
people our age who have some money but are pre-kids, there's an appeal to something like that, particularly if it's got the commercial on the ground floor, because
Because we want this land.
You can get a
young people are
sandwich,
bad
get
at saving
groceries.
money. We're like, yeah, I'll just go eat out. I'm gonna walk
All right, let's
downstairs.
get back to the topic, yes.
Hey, it'll be meals tax.
I assume we're going to change the minutes of whatever's
I
on
think
the
it
floor.
is, yeah. Especially when you think about like what it looked like a year ago.
There's
It was
not much
actually
land
like
left. There really isn't undeveloped land.
an
Along
environmental
Grove Street and Summer
disaster. Like it was something.
Oh, yeah.
The EPA had been keeping an eye on it since the 80s. Like it was real bad.
I'm a big believer that you can do that kind of stuff, but do it in a really
Yeah,
nice,
behind that,
way.
there are some
And I
large
think that's on the
properties
tasteful end
that
of
could be
projects. So
subdivided to
it's hard to plan for, but if we can,
tens of homes on each
I
lot.
like the, you know,
It's,
They're
you know,
How
I'm
much
just gonna
land
get
is there
creative with
behind-
the
we were
planning,
talking about
Yeah.
it
something
for
like
the-
that, you know? But Giorgio makes it so easy, because
Yeah.
there's such
He
give and
does.
take with him, you
Yeah.
know? He's just, he knows
Hilly land there.
There's,
this
there's land
neighborhood
that's
is his
part of
bread
the
and
University
butter,
Station
he's gotta
Development, it's
keep it
about
happy,
11
so
and a
he
half
goes the
acres,
extra
so-
mile to keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
They're not all like that.
Yeah, I know.
Trust me, I've dealt with them.
Now, this is from
So have we, by
We
now.
both are aware.
I actually approved one of Giorgio's projects last night.
Oh, yeah?
You have any goals you
High
want to
Street.
include here?
Well, let me see what we got here. Maybe-
All right, we're gonna wrap up the breakout sessions. I have no idea what's going on over there, so.
Not soon enough.
Halfway. It's on now.
Fine.
It's currently single family. It's going to be 5 subdivided
This
into
isn't the
5.
Harlequin stables.
No, I don't think,
Before Summer
Until
Street?
someone tells them.
no,
That's
no,
what we
no.
heard.
It, well, let me see if I can.
It's
I-
like
there's no
right by
stables I
the
know of on the
interstate.
property, so.
It's currently just one house, and then it's a large property, so it's going to be
I
5
think people have
lined
talked
up.
about it over the years. but
Okay, we're gonna resume.
We've turn around. I'm gonna have to move my chair.
Back to our
it's,
seats.
Basically this property up in.
So for the last piece, I'm just gonna ask each group to kind of share highlights from
Okay,
their
And there's the
discussion.
Yeah. okay,
Keep
so-
in mind, there's microphones in front of you.
Okay, so this is the property next door. Sorry.
So, it's before the holidays. So when you share, just try to make sure you're somewhat near one of the table mics, so that they can hear you on the recording. But as many, it's a smaller audience tonight, so as many highlights as you would like to share from your discussion. We'll start with this group over here.
We're starting with us, and you want us to?
Just a few highlights from your discussion that you want to share.
Absolutely.
I'll let you go first.
I'll let you finish that. All right. All right, you want me to, we going straight to section 4, or?
You can go to any section that you stuck out to your group. You can bounce around, just anything that you feel like sharing with the larger group.
Okay, well, we'll start with section 2, what we liked about the housing in Westwood currently. And we all tend to agree that it was the small town feel, single-family homes, the architecture, things in that nature.
The character.
The character of the
Westwood.
town of Westwood as it stands. That's what attracted us all here to the housing currently. As far as what housing needs are currently not being met and what could be improved, sidewalks in the town more readily. Thank you. On the individual crossover, high traveled streets, be it Canton or Gay Street, Manhattan Street, Barber Tree. We need more different housing choices, be it multifamily, two-family, single-family, starter homes, maybe step-down homes for the older in town. And, well, that'll do it for question 3. And as far as question 4 goes, using answers to 2 and 3, identify goals and strategies for promoting housing choice and stability in Westwood. Neighborhoods with zoning to restrict sizes, number of buildings on it, to create more of a group feeling. I'm sorry, what was that?
What's it, cluster style zoning or kind of cottage style, highly compact, single family development.
There you go.
Neighborhoods of starter homes that stay starter homes.
Yeah.
I can read some of these
Sure.
too. And chime in too. We kind of
Yeah.
started writing our ideas in this section and didn't fully vet them with the group. So, higher density housing near commuter rail stations to attract young professionals. Encourage, higher density development and mixed use development through zoning, and then I said, or cottage style, compact, single family or cluster development. Consider rezoning Meditech for mixed use redevelopment. And then certainly keeping the SHI, the affordability rate.
Yes.
For 8+ units, and continuing to focus on that. And any others you want to? Yeah, okay, cool.
All right, thank you. Other group?
All right, so I'll start with what do you like about housing in Westwood currently? Our group said that there's like a pretty, charming kind of character to the town, beautiful homes. They like the neighborhoods and the schools, the school system. Let me touch on a couple other ones. They really like the Everett Street complex that's being proposed, how it's cleaning up a Superfund site, providing mixed use and some affordable housing. Proud of Westwood being above the subsidized housing threshold. Access to the great school system and services. Let's see, what needs are currently not being met. The price of homes and maintenance of homes is pricing out seniors from their current living spaces, not allowing for first-time home buyers to have access to housing. Kind of the same idea of empty nesters that want to downsize as well, don't really have that opportunity. There's a lack of housing diversity, so whether it's like duplexes or townhouses, yeah, so I think that's it for, and please, let me know if there's anything else that you want to add. And then as we talk about goals and strategies, looking at a potential townhouse model for housing diversity, condos, something of that nature that would not take up as much land but still provide housing opportunity, creating some type of communal, intergenerational, multicultural home neighborhood type of model, provide opportunity for first-time home buyers, create a culture shift from the NIMBY, not in my backyard, to more of a yes in my backyard, with making sure there's public education behind that. Exploring new opportunities with the new ADU legislation, identifying ways to finance the purchasing and development of land for housing, and then identify possibly looking at homes that may turn over and seeing how much land certain homes have, and potentially if they were to subdivide, what does that look like?
So I heard both groups talk about the character, that was a common theme among you guys, and then also housing choice, so more diversity in the types of housing. And then both of you also touched upon both the need for starter homes, but also an option to downsize once you're ready. So a lot of good ideas. Did anyone have any other questions or comments that they wanted to share to me? It's okay.
This has been great and enjoyable.
Yeah.
So last thing, tomorrow is the last day to enter the lottery for 436 Washington Street. There will be 5 affordable 1-bedroom units there. So if you know anyone looking, tomorrow is the last day to enter that lottery. And then if you want to stay up to date, we'll continue to update the website. You can go to that link there, or you can just search Housing Production Plan Westwood and it should come right up. As we release different drafts of each section, they'll all be posted there, and you're always welcome to submit public comment. And then our housing partnership / fair housing committee meetings are always available on Zoom to attend. you can see the town calendar for those for info on how to join. With that, thank you for everyone, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Amanda.
And,